And we are live. Happy Friday, everybody. How are you guys? I hope everyone is having a wonderful October so far. It feels like it's half over, and it is, but that's okay. So I am so excited for our October chat. So this month we are talking about how to boast without bragging online. Now, this is a topic that can apply to anyone, whether you're a small business or a large corporation. Across all my experience, the concept of sharing your wins is so frightful for people, whether, like I said, they work themselves or they work with a whole company. So we have none other than Amy Pocsik of Bold Moves and Women's Business League to tell us exactly how to boast without bragging. And you guys, so Amy is a very dear friend, and this is a topic that she came up with. And then our next two guests, it flowed so naturally. And so, Amy, why don't you give us a little intro about who you are and tell us why you came to me with this topic? I think that would help everybody.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lauren. You are a powerhouse. I just adore you. I so appreciate your work in this space. I think you bring such an amazing level of expertise and professionalism and helping amazing executives and entrepreneurs really share their stories. So first of all, just thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today, truly. Yeah, this is a topic I'm super passionate about because it really transformed my business. And it was something that I was very resistant about, building a personal brand and sharing results, sharing your story. I was working so hard in my business, this is a couple of years ago, and it felt like everybody else was getting these amazing opportunities, but I wasn't. And so I said, let me just take a pause and let me see what I'm missing. So I started talking to really amazing executives and entrepreneurs that I admired, and they got really honest with me and said, Amy, you're doing incredible work, but you're kind of like the best kept secret.
No one wants to be the best kept secret, you guys. It sounds exciting, but it's really, that means you're not getting the wins.
Yeah. And, they said, just like everybody else, you're in a space where there's a lot of other people doing what you're doing, which I think we all feel that, right? There's
Exactly.
a million of everything. There's a million executive coaches. There's a million writers. There's a million everything. So how do you stand out and differentiate yourself? And more importantly, really magnetize a relationship with the people that are meant to work with you, because I truly believe there's more than enough work. There's more than enough opportunity
Absolutely.
for everybody. And so these executives and entrepreneurs I was reaching out to, they said, you've really got to start sharing your journey, your challenges, your results. And I was so hesitant. I didn't want to put my entire personal life out on the internet. That did not feel good to me. I didn't want to sound like I was bragging when I talked about my professional accomplishments.
Yeah.
And I also felt like my story, I wasn't sure if it was big enough. Like I hadn't overcome some incredible challenge. Like it didn't feel like it was that huge, like story worthy.
Yeah.
And so I really studied personal branding. I read every book you could possibly imagine. I took courses and I learned from experts and podcasts. I did a whole deep dive and I said, okay, let me see what works and what doesn't. And over some time, I started putting myself out there and the results were incredible. And I just got so hooked. And now I teach it to all of my clients because alongside the right strategies, it can be a game changer. You can massively increase your income and your impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we can talk a little bit about, why it's good for business, especially if you're an entrepreneur, but also, why it's good, even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're a solo and, one man shop in a large organization, why should you do that? But, one thing I want to disclaim is that I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel, I don't want to put my stuff out there. I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. I hear that over and over again. And it's very much a cultural shift, because I do think, we all kind of came up in a time where you didn't really brag or talk about yourself or share your wins. But, that's what people need to hear to know you are a person they want to work with. And if you are sharing your wins and someone sees it as bragging, then that's obviously not the client for you. You want to see someone that's, oh, wow, she's giving her advice, not up here to, stand out and be a braggart. But how have you seen this shift help your clients from a business perspective and yourself, and talking through both that entrepreneurship and that corporate experience? Because I do feel people may see this as like, all right, well, Lauren and Amy work for themselves, so that makes sense. But that's not it. Like, whether you work for yourself or you're, in a large corporation, it's still personal branding is still a move you want to make. So tell us about the kind of business aspect of that.
Great question. It is a move you want to make. Whether you are an exec or an entrepreneur, building your own personal brand, SEO, is so important. So when I first started this journey, I had the misconception that I think a lot of people have, which is that my business is out front. The company that I work for is out front.
Right.
But one of the key mindset shifts that I had to really internalize was that no, actually, your personal brand is sort of like the umbrella. And the more that you strengthen that, it's going to amplify any type of work that you do, whether it's in a corporate role, whether it's owning your own business, whether it's lending your expertise to a charitable organization. You're going to bring the value of your personal brand to everything that you touch. It's going to open doors to thought leadership opportunities. You and I have both, spoken on panels, done podcasts. You become a recognized leader in your field. And from an exec standpoint, when you are ready to make a career change, when you're up for promotion, when you are looking for a next stretch opportunity, if you've got a solid personal brand and people know who you are, know what you're about and the results that you can deliver, it positions you very strategically for that next big opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is very much a difference between the boasting and the bragging. Can you talk about that nuance? Because I think that's probably where people get confused.
Absolutely. Look, I'm not suggesting that people go on LinkedIn and say, here's my top 5 results. And, that is bragging.
That's bragging.
Let's just call it out, right? But when you stand in the fullness of your entire journey, when you share the context of how you got to where you are, then it becomes inspirational, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes we can scroll Instagram, we can scroll LinkedIn, and it does feel like a highlights reel. Like everybody's
absolutely.
Absolutely. But when you want to have a personal brand that's very powerful, you want to share the fullness of your journey so that when those wins do come, and they're going to come, people are cheering for you because actually they understand the work that you put in to get there. They have seen the challenges that you've gone through, and they're right alongside you in the journey. And so I think making sure that we're being strategic and thoughtful about what we're communicating online over time.
Yeah, exactly.
It is really, really important. And then even when you are sharing those results, you're showing what you've learned, what you've accomplished, what you stand for is in service to others. You're not going on there just to share.
Brag.
Yeah. You're really doing it because you want to help others. And that's a powerful personal brand.
So I want to share a quote that I saw online yesterday that made me think of this conversation. He's probably not watching, but my friend Sean posted this, and I thought this was a good way of positioning it, because I think sometimes people feel that when you are sharing your wins, you are, self-impressed, or, those kind of that extra, like, oh, they just like to hear themselves talk. But this is what he said. It's a quote by Nathaniel Branden. Persons of high self-esteem are not driven to make themselves superior to others. They do not seek to prove their value by measuring themselves against a comparative standard. Their joy is being who they are, not in being better than someone else. And I thought that was powerful because it really shows that, people that are sharing their wins and sharing their personal branding are not there to brag or compare, in earnest. People that are doing it earnestly, they're there because they get true joy in sharing their journey with others. And that really called to me because that's how I feel. And I know that's how you feel. So I just thought that was a really powerful statement.
It's really powerful. It's so powerful. And one of the things that I often hear, and I'm sure you hear this too, is that people have a lot of fear about judgment
Right.
from others, whether it's
Exactly.
bragging or otherwise. There's a sentiment of like, who do they think they are? What are they going to say about me? How am I going to, people are going to talk. And to that, I just say, whether you are going to put something out there or not, they're probably going to, those folks
Exactly.
that,
Yeah.
that
Who
are going to,
cares?
who cares? Exactly. Who cares? They're not the people that you're meant to serve anyways. And so, pay little or no attention to that and move on. Lauren, I wanted to get your take on this though. So I do hear this a lot from my clients as we're building their personal brand. And I felt it too. My story's not big enough.
Yes, it is. So you don't have to have overcome, some fatal disease that you beat the odds. You do not have to have survived on Mount Everest by yourself for 10 weeks. I don't even know. You don't have to be Oprah. Although she's a lovely human being, but you don't have to be her. You don't even have to be the people, that kind of have personal brands, that are known for personal brands, like a Jenna Kutcher or something. Again, lovely, but you don't have to even aspire to that level of a personal brand. You just have to tell your story in service to others and really know that there is somebody out there that is experiencing what you're experiencing, wants to hear what you've been through, and it's never too little, because it's about the lesson more than anything. You are really focusing on, here's the experience I learned from the crazy things that I went through, or not so crazy. And I want to share the lesson. And if you focus on the lesson, then that's what people are going to remember. They're not going to really care that you didn't, die on Mount Everest and then come back to life when you walk down it yourself. It's just not like that. You don't have to be that, it doesn't have to be that extreme.
Yeah, it's so true. It's such good perspective. The other thing that I hear a lot is, I want to build a personal brand. I know that I should build a personal brand, but I don't want to put my entire life on the internet.
Yeah, and I know that's important to you too, because I remember when I first met you, I was like, "Do you have any kids? Like, I don't even see anything. Like, who are you?" Because Amy feels very strongly, you guys, about not putting her family out there, and I'm, kind of along the same way. Every once in a while, you'll see like my husband or like sometimes my nephews, but I don't want my brand to be all about that. That's not my brand. However, I do want to say, full disclaimer, like if I was in childcare, or we have a woman in our circle that does like cooking training, so her kids of course have to be on her platform, because that's how she's going to sell it. But for people like us, that's just not as important to our message. And it may not feel comfortable to put your kids out there, may not feel comfortable to even like put your, husband out there, your wife, whatnot. And that's totally fine. Again, it's you that people are looking for. They really want to get to know you as a person. And I think it's important to remember, though, if you are putting something out there and you don't feel comfortable with it, people are going to notice that. They're going to know that's not authentic, and they are going to know. So remember that you got to do what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. They're going to feel the energy that you're bringing to the content that you're putting out there. And so I always say you're in the driver's seat, right? You get to define and set your own boundaries. And,
Exactly.
it doesn't mean there's plenty of areas and challenges in my life that I don't feel comfortable talking about. Maybe it's an area that I'm still processing, right? We're all humans. We're all going through challenges. It's okay to say, you know what, this particular part of my life is just not going to be part of my online presence. And that's okay. You are in the driver's seat. You can still be very strategic and craft it in a way that it still delivers results for you, and still feels authentic. But yet you don't have to put your entire existence out on the internet.
Exactly. And I think that's the misconception, that, you do have to share everything. And I get that question a lot, especially from the women in the Chronic Boss Collective who do have these really crazy health stories that are maybe kind of nitty gritty and a little, TMI. And I always get that question, like, how much do I put out there? Like, no, you don't need to like tell us exactly what happened at the hospital. Just tell us that you went to the hospital and tell us the lesson you learned. Tell us how it turned out. Tell us what that drove you to do. And I think that's always my piece of advice is like, you don't need to go into the nitty gritty. And in fact, I would argue if you do get too far into the nitty gritty, you kind of lose people because they're like, all right, where's this going? Like, that's the other thing too, is yes, it's your story, but also bear in mind that you have people's attentions for, such few minutes. So putting out the story as concisely but comprehensively as possible, it's a knack, but once you figure it out, you get there. And I think that's huge too.
Right. And one of the things I'm super passionate about as a business coach, as an exec coach, is making sure that we're thinking about personal branding. We're thinking about our online presence and in-person presence in the context of our overall goals, of our long-term vision for our business and our life, right? I think we can't create a brand, or we can't put a strategy around a brand without the fullness of, okay, what are our professional goals? What are our personal goals? What impact do we want to have? And understanding how that fits into our life vision, really. I've seen you do this,
Exactly.
Lauren. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think probably a lot of people are like me and felt kind of like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. And I think the piece of advice I have is like, you just got to start somewhere. And also remember that as much as people are reading it, they're not. This is the reality of being in our digital world today, is that if you put something out there and you're worried about feeling stupid, you guys, I guarantee no one is reading it in the way that you are thinking they are. I guarantee they're just scanning it and like, oh, that's interesting. And by the time people are remembering your message, you have honed it. So no one is going back to those first posts where feel like you're fumbling around a little bit. It's every time you show up, the more and more you show up, that's when people are reading it. That's when they're remembering it. So that's why we always have to say, you got to start somewhere, especially if you're just building this presence. Start somewhere. It may be messy. It may not be exactly what you want to say. But when you start somewhere, then you can build it and build it and build it. And then by the time you have it like finessed and it's beautiful, that's when people are remembering. That's why you have to keep going. And that's why we just talked about everything last month with repetition. Repetition is so important, because think back to when you first started. Is it nearly as polished as it is now?
No way.
Yeah. Do I remember what she said? No, not
No.
at all. So just remember that, because I think people have this vision of like someone like reading their post at town hall or something like that. And that's just not what happens.
It's
But
not.
yeah, but like anything, the more you do it, the better you get. And, then you're memorable.
Yeah, I think if you're on the fence about it, I would just encourage folks to again, just really anchor in your goals. Think about your vision. Think about the opportunities that you want. Think about how you want to help others. And then consider that building your personal brand really is a very impactful way to do that.
Yeah, and I think I'm super excited because next week we're going to talk to Rachel, who's a healthcare marketer and an entrepreneur. She has both perspectives. We're going to talk about the power of a success story, and I think that will help people understand how do you package this. Because it's one thing for us to tell you and to try and motivate you, and arguably this is the hardest part. The hardest part is getting the courage and getting the self-esteem to do it. But then the next part is turning it from that kind of messy, like initial, post to what's a beautiful success story that reads easily, that you can pull snippets from and, use throughout your journey, throughout your content calendar. So I think that will be really helpful. But honestly, to even get to that conversation, you gotta have the just courage and just the blinders on. I remember one of the first conversations you had with me, Amy, I'll never forget it because it was just so impactful. You talked about horses and how when horses are racing, they wear blinders so they don't look at the horses next to them. And I think that that's a great analogy here too.
Yeah. Run your race, right? Run your race. This is your purpose. And I think that it can make a lot of things very much easier, and you can have a larger impact, And so I'm just so excited that you're doing this, Lauren, because it is so needed. I can't wait to tune in with you and Rachel next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one we're speaking to Laura Crowley. And I thought this was very important to talk about how do you do this in an industry where everything is proprietary, where really sharing stories is a no-no. And Laura knows that as she works in the medical aesthetics field. When we were going to write her case studies, I was like, oh, can we interview this person? No. Can we do it? No. We literally had to be so creative. So I know that people are going to be watching this and thinking that, like, yeah, but that's not my industry, but I can't talk about my clients. Yes, you can. There are ways around it. And at the end of the day, we don't really care who your client was or what happened. We care how you managed it, how you figured out the solution. And that's ultimately what is going to get people to remember you, not who your client exactly was. So
Yeah, absolutely. And also just thinking about, sometimes we get so so busy in our day to day, whether entrepreneur, exec, and this work can kind of fall to the back burner. And I'm guilty of this too. The last thing on my to-do list sometimes is posting on LinkedIn, but I want to be consistent, right? Because I know the results that it can deliver. And part of it is just that practice of, prioritizing your personal brand SEO and your own goals.
Yeah, and just truly showing up. This is what I tell everybody. Like, if you take away one thing, like just put 20 minutes on the calendar 3 times a week and show up on LinkedIn. And I would also argue that by doing that, you will see people like us posting and get some ideas for what feels comfortable with you. What Amy and I post may be too personal for you, but there is somebody out there that is posting something that you will resonate with, that you can use that. And we're not saying copy their story by any stretch, but that's how I got a good feel for my story, is that finding the balance that felt most authentic to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to get on, just get in the game. Just get in the game.
Exactly. Just do it. So what advice would you have, the final piece here, what advice would you have for somebody that's like, I'm so scared. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. I don't want to, people to talk about me. What would you say?
I would say, I get it. I have been where you are. And I'll never forget the first post I put out on LinkedIn that felt so vulnerable to me. And looking back, it wasn't that vulnerable.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to say, you know.
But I was authentic. I shared my heart. I shared my story. I shared a struggle. I shared what I did about it. And I'll never forget that post. Somebody on LinkedIn said, this really resonates with me. And she became one of my first clients. And from that moment, I realized that showing up authentically and showing up, sharing your journey in service to others really does deliver amazing results. Like that relationship never would have happened without me being bold enough to share my story. And I want that for others. And I think once you get that understanding and once you see the results, then you're going to be hooked just like you and I are.
Exactly. And really thinking about it like you're doing a service to others, I think is the biggest takeaway you can think about today. And think about that quote that you are not doing it because you're trying to be better than someone. You're doing it out of pure joy of being who you are and sharing that with others. So on that note, that's a high. So we have to leave on that note.
Absolutely.
But thank you guys so much. Like we said, next week Rachel will come on and talk to us about, okay, we're feeling into it now. How do we do it? So that'll be great. I'm super excited, and have a lovely weekend, you guys. And we will see you next week.
Bye. Thank you, Lauren.
Bye, guys. Bye, Amy.